Hello and welcome friends. Now that we have completed 4 units in rural marketing, it is the time for us to move over to the final unit wherein we'll be discussing the rural cooperatives. Now before moving on to the discussion about rural cooperatives, we should know what are cooperatives and why are they basically formed. So basically, as you can have a look at the picture here, you see that some people are coming together and they're forming a group, and probably it seems that they're doing it for some common purpose, and that is why this particular picture has been put here. It depicts the philosophy of cooperatives. Cooperatives are basically voluntary associations of persons, which mean people join them of their own volition. It's not as if they are made to join them. So if there is a cooperative organization, if people feel that joining the organization may be of some benefit to them, that is only when they join these kind of organizations. So these are voluntary associations. They are jointly owned by members. So basically what happens is, in a cooperative, people who become members of the cooperative, the members, they actually pool in their resources, and thus the cooperative is formed. And once the cooperative is formed, since they've all pooled in their resources, they would also share ownership of the cooperative. So they would be joint owners of the cooperative. They would be jointly owning the cooperative, because after all it was their resources which were pooled up to form the cooperative, to set up the cooperative. Then as far as the functioning is concerned, it is democratic. What does this mean? This means that in case some decision has to be taken, this would be taken by all the members, and depending on what the majority feels, or depending on the will of the majority, decisions are made. For example, there can be so many decisions which have to be made. For example, should the branding be done or not? What all functions should the cooperative perform? So these are so many decisions that have to be taken. Which particular bank to open up an account in, which particular scheme to apply for. So these are all the questions that have to be answered, the decisions that have to be made, and such decisions are made in a democratic manner. All the members come together, and depending on what the majority feels is the best way ahead, the decision is accordingly taken. Then as far as the goals of cooperatives are concerned, they've got common economic goals, which means they share objectives. All the members, they have common goals. For example, we'll talk about different kind of cooperatives now. I'll give you an example of Amul, basically the Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation. Amul is just the brand name. So when this cooperative was formed, the main objective behind forming this particular cooperative, and this particular goal was shared by all the members of the cooperative also, was to increase the returns for the dairy farmers, and to rise up against the exploitation by the other intermediaries. So that was the basic idea behind that particular cooperative, and this was one economic goal which was shared by all the farmers, all the dairy farmers who were part of that cooperative. Then the problem solving is collective, which means all the members contribute to problem solving whenever there is an issue. It is not left to a particular individual or just the person who is the president or the secretary of the cooperative, but there is a collective problem solving which takes place in cooperatives. Now let us move to the next topic, in which we will have to discuss as to why cooperatives are required in the rural areas. What is the need of rural cooperatives? What functions do they perform which are not being performed by any other entities, any other organizations, and which make them such a vital part of the rural markets in the rural hinterland? First requirement is that the farmers are disadvantaged. We have had so many discussions wherein we have talked about the low bargaining power that they have, that the kind of exploitation they have to face at the hands of intermediaries, or many times at the hands of the rich landlords. So farmers are basically disadvantaged many times when they bring their produce to the market. There are other farmers also who are bringing their produce to the market, so which means that the supply would be, at that point of time there would be very large amount of supply in the market, while the demand would not have risen to the same extent, which means that they would be able to charge lower prices only, and in fact they would be facing the intermediaries demand to lower the prices further. So there are so many reasons why the farmers are disadvantaged. I have quoted two reasons. Perishable products can't be withheld till price increase. There are perishable commodities which are produced by farmers, for example fruits and vegetables. Dairy products are also perishable commodities only, and in case of perishable commodity, it is just not possible for the farmer to keep, to stock the produce and wait for the time when the price will further increase. So he has no option but to offload his product, but to sell his produce. And because all the farmers, they would want to sell their produce as fast as possible, because they would not want the perishable commodities to rot, so they would want to sell their produce as fast as possible, and this would mean that they would have to somehow manage to sell their products to the intermediaries. Since the intermediaries know that if the farmers are not able to sell their perishable produce, they will have to incur losses, they make use of this information to exploit the farmer and to bargain for lowest possible prices. Now this is one major reason, and this is not only the case with perishable products, but in many of the other products as well. Many of our farmers do not have sufficient storage facilities, let alone cold storages for fruits and vegetables and perishable commodities. So naturally, if they do not have storage facilities, they would want to sell their produce as fast as possible. And we have also discussed that they also want to sell their produce as fast as possible because they use their earnings for investment in the next cropping cycle also, which is fast approaching. So if they are not able to sell their produce, they would naturally not be having money to invest in the next cropping cycle. So that is why they are a disadvantaged lot. Again, one more issue is there. However, the government has slowly been trying to relax this particular provision. As of now, the farmers are not free to sell outside the particular mandi which falls in the area to which they belong. So they are simply not free to sell outside mandi to any other person outside mandi, which means they will have to sell all their produce in the mandi only. And naturally, they cannot. There are limited number of customers there, intermediaries there in the mandi, which means they cannot bargain a lot also. So they don't have the freedom to sell it to whosoever pays them the highest price outside or within the mandi. So they have to sell within the mandi. However, let me come up with a disclaimer. The government has only recently declared that they would soon be doing away with this requirement of the farmer having to sell only in the mandi. And this happened in the wake of the COVID-19 crisis, and this was part of the 20 lakh crore package that the finance minister Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman released some 2 weeks back. Naturally, as we have seen that since the farmers are disadvantaged, there is rampant exploitation by the intermediaries, by the traders, or many a times the adatiyas. So there is rampant exploitation of farmers or farming community by the intermediaries. They look to extract the lowest possible price from the farmers. They know that the farmer somehow has to sell his produce, so he may go for distress selling. We have discussed distress selling also. So they would want to extract the lowest possible price from the farmers. And secondly, many times when they are actually doing the transaction, they manipulate the weight so that the quantity weighs less. The quantity being sold by the farmer and being purchased by these traders or intermediaries seems less than what the actual quantity is. And naturally, since the quantity comes out to be less amount of money will have to be paid by the intermediaries to the farmers. So these kind of manipulation of weights, tarazu and scales is also very, very rampant in the rural hinterland. And this actually situation is also worsened by the fact that the farmers are not that educational, they do not have that kind of educational background, they are not very aware, and it is difficult for them to spot these kind of corrupt practices and to naturally rise up against these kind of corrupt practices, right? Then again there is another issue, farmer indebtedness. We know that the farmers are indebted. We have discussed this, how the farmers in our rural areas, they are provided loans by these non-institutional sources like the shrafs or the sahukars, and once they are not able to repay the loan, then many a times these sahukars and the shrafs, they try to snatch away their land. So these kind of issues are very common in rural India. They take loan from money lenders, and if they are not able to repay the loan, many times they have to work as bonded labor. Now if somehow there is a rural cooperative which is also a credit cooperative which will provide loan to farmers whenever they require it, and naturally it would not be for the purpose of exploitation of the farmers, and naturally the interest rates would be low, the farmers can go to that particular credit cooperative, avail the loan facility, and then can invest the money in the next cropping cycle or for some other purpose. So this is one more reason why we require rural cooperatives, specifically credit cooperatives. Low awareness of processing and packaging know-how. Many of the farmers are not aware of how to process their produce, because many a times only a little bit of processing can add great value to your produce. You may compare the prices of apple to the prices of jam, and you will find that the prices of jams would be way too higher than the prices of apple. This shows that just by processing the apple into jam, you can increase your returns, increase your profit, increase your revenue earnings. So since the farmers are not aware of this particular fact, they are also not having understanding of the various processing technologies which are there. They do not know how to process a particular food item into value-added good. They are simply not able to sell their produce at a good price. Then simply not able to, their product is simply not able to command a good price in the market. While on the other hand, the intermediaries who have bought from them, the processors like the companies or the firms which produce pickles and jams from, let's say, apples, they earn a lot more just because they know how to add value to the product. So they purchase the raw materials from the farmer, process it, and they earn a lot of money for that. So this is one major issue with our farmers. Then again, they do not have knowledge of packaging. So in that sense, if they combine as a rural cooperative, and the rural cooperative, since it will have more resources, it can invest in obtaining technology for processing and packaging. It can invest in imparting these kind of processing and packaging skills to its farmers, and naturally the farmers would be able to obtain greater returns for their produce in the market. So this is another reason why we require rural cooperatives, and this reason is specific to rural marketing cooperatives, which are basically meant to market the product among the customers. Again, as I said, the farmers, they also lack marketing skills, because of which they do not get sufficient returns for their hard work. Then let us talk about the objectives that the rural cooperatives are set up with, or the goals that the rural cooperatives have to achieve. Replacing the intermediaries. Now this is one major objective, because you know that the farmers generally sell to intermediaries, and intermediaries sell then to secondary traders, and the traders would sell it to some other intermediary, and so on and so forth. And this ultimately will lead to a lot of commission going to the intermediaries, which means the farmer would not be able to earn much. So this is the major objective of setting up a rural cooperative, to replace the intermediaries, so that the farmers can obtain better prices for the return. Then again, when farmers who sell as an individual farmers might be selling a particular product individually. When they do it, since all the farmers would be there in the market selling their produce, there would be a lot of competition. On the other hand, if all these farmers who are trying to sell their produce in the market, they come together, form a cooperative, now they are selling as one single unit, which means the number of sellers in the market would have reduced. Earlier there were so many farmers, they were selling their own produce, so there were a number of sellers. Now the number of sellers would be just one, because all of them have formed cooperative, and naturally, going by the various laws in microeconomics, you would understand when the number of sellers is less, the prices are going to be relatively higher, and the farmers are going to earn greater revenue and then be able to distribute it among the other members of the cooperatives. So this is one more reason why we have rural cooperatives. Again, as I said, if you are selling as one single unit, you have formed a cooperative and everybody has joined it. Now since the number of sellers have been reduced, the sellers would become more dominant in the market. They would be more dominant in the market with comparison to the buyers, and then they can influence the market prices. They can bargain for higher prices. So this is another objective, and this, if the cooperative is able to do that, naturally the farmers who are members of the cooperative, they would benefit, because now they would be able to earn more for the same amount of produce. Then again, as I said, rural credit cooperatives are there which provide credit to farmers and promote thrift. They promote saving. Why? Because in rural credit cooperatives generally there is a little bit of a membership fee which everybody has to pay, and then every week or maybe every fortnightly, depending on what are the various laws of that particular cooperative, various rules and regulations of that particular cooperative, every weekly or maybe daily or every fortnightly or every monthly, the farmers have to basically contribute some money. So the farmers or the rural community, they would be incentivized, they would get into the habit of saving some money so as to contribute that money to the rural cooperative, which will ultimately come back to them with returns. So that is why rural cooperatives also promote the habit of thrift, habit of saving among the farmers, among the rural community members. Then again, many buyer cooperatives are there. Buyer cooperatives do what? They club in the purchase of all the members and then they purchase in bulk. Because they are purchasing bulk, number one, they will have more bargaining power, which means they can bargain for lower prices, and secondly, purchasing in bulk would mean that they will also get bulk discount, which can then, this kind of saving can then further be passed on to the farmers who are the members of the buyer cooperatives. So providing agriculture inputs at low prices. So here buyer cooperatives are buying agriculture inputs in bulk, and that is why they are able to charge, they are able to obtain these agriculture inputs at lower price. They pass on the benefit to the members. Then many cooperatives are also set up to provide various facilities to their members. See, one single farmer may not have the kind of money, or he may not have the kind of resources to set up his own storage facility or a processing facility, or maybe let's say a packaging machine, to buy a packaging machine, or to collect market information, accordingly produce different crops, or to obtain consultancy from some expert or some agriculture scientist. But when they form a group, and they come together and form a cooperative, then since the cooperative will have more resources, they can invest in buying machines for processing purpose or packaging purpose. They can invest in marketing their products, marketing them under a particular brand name among the customers. They can also invest in constructing a storage infrastructure, maybe a cold storage for commodities like potatoes. They may also be able to collect information from the market regarding what the other people are doing, what the buyers are expecting, and what would be the demand for a particular commodity 2 years or 3 years down the line. So they can indulge in these kind of information collection also. And then since the cooperative has resources, the cooperative can also engage any consultant to provide advice to the member farmers. One more advantage of rural cooperative is that since they are group ventures, people come together to form cooperatives, so they are basically group ventures. They promote risk-taking and entrepreneurial behavior. See, in India, the modal personality is risk-averse. Modal, M-O-D-A-L, not model. Modal means most number of people are risk averse, which means that they do not like taking risk. However, it has been found out that to succeed as an entrepreneur, to set up and to run a successful business, you need to have moderate risk taking. Since Indians are risk averse, they don't want to take any risk. So they are naturally not fit for entrepreneurial ventures. However, when they come together as a group, what will happen is their risk propensity, the capacity to take risks would increase. See, when you are all alone in a forest, you would not want to travel through a forest at the dead of a night all alone. But however, if you are 10-20 friends, you would be more ready to perform this task because your risk taking would increase because there are so many people who are involved with you. So likewise with a cooperative, what happens is the risk taking ability of the members increase, and these members who were earlier, most of them were earlier low risk takers or risk averse, now they start becoming moderate risk takers, and moderate risk taking is highly correlated with entrepreneurial success, which means these kind of cooperatives are very likely to set up their own business and to successfully run that, because now the risk taking is of the moderate level. Earlier it was of the lowest possible level, it was not there at all, but now the members have started taking risk, which means they are more likely to succeed in any entrepreneurial venture now, and this would help them diversify their income also. So cooperatives actually, they present an avenue for the members to take higher amount of risk, to transform into a moderate risk taking kind of individual, and to then undertake successful entrepreneurial ventures. Again, if somehow the members are able to successfully run their entrepreneurial venture, naturally they would be able to generate more income from these entrepreneurial ventures, from these small businesses, than from the field. This would also help them diversify their income. So even if the crop fail in a particular year because of various natural calamities, they still have something, they still will have something else to rely on. And this is what is the basic objective behind diversifying income sources, so that even if one particular source of income dries up, they have other sources of income to fall back on. So this is what rural cooperatives help in doing. Since rural cooperatives, they set up many a times their own marketing unit, and then they package and sell their produce under a particular brand name, they are able to provide an extra source of income for the poor families, for the rural families. So friends, this much is all for the day. Tomorrow we are going to discuss about the structure of the cooperatives, and we'll also have a look at the various types of cooperatives that can be there. Thank you very much for your time.